Where do we put our hope where we know we're not going to get disappointed? Now, another thing that I want to throw in here, not being disappointed doesn't mean it always goes the way you want. Doesn't mean it's always perfect and, hey, candy cane and lollipops and rainbows and here we go. No, that's not. Being hopeful is everything's going to be great. Hope says, even when things aren't, I'm still good. Even when everything's crashing around me, I'm not going to go under. I'm not drowning. It's tough, stressful, fear is going to try to creep in, anxiety, but I'm still good. I can overcome whatever's in front of me because I have hope. I have something I can hang on to that gets me through. Well, welcome back to the Release Podcast. And I hope you've enjoyed them up to this point. And, you know, we've talked about some pretty heavy stuff. And I think today we want to turn the corner and talk about something that's not quite as heavy. But I think it was really, really important to spend the first 6 episodes together, I guess, laying the groundwork, right? Like, because again, I've told you guys there was some stuff that I said and I just wanted to be really clear about where I'm coming from and clear about the podcasts, the intent of the podcast. So in turning the corner, I thought today we would talk about the subject of hope. And, you know, as I was thinking about that, was able to have an unexpected and a beautiful conversation this morning with a dear friend. And just, again, talked about a lot of things, but one of the things that came up in that conversation was hope and what we hope in, what we hope for, and just how that affects our heart and our mind, especially in the world today. If you look around, man, it's pretty easy to be hopeless. You know, you think about what's happening around our world. I'm going to tell you this podcast, we are never going to talk politics. I'm not interested in doing that. For a while in my life, I thought I was going to have a political career. Boy, I'm glad I didn't do that. But when you look at what's happening politically in our world, this isn't about sides, okay? Again, very, very clear. I'm not talking politics, but I'm talking about how the political environment, it will lead you to be hopeless because you're wanting to be hopeful that things are going to get better, hopeful that, you know, the past, whatever. I mean, goodness, I can't think of the last time things in our country have been good economically, culturally. It's been a rough road over the past several years. You throw in COVID, you know, you throw in just a lot of different agendas, and it can really be hopeless. And then you can also say, like, where do I fit in all this? Right? Because it's easy to get pulled into the political conversations. It's easy to get pulled into the next big agenda. Which side are you on? So there's a lot of things out there that cause division, um, wherever it's at, you know, whether it's at your job, whether it's in your family, your church, any number of places. It's like you got to pick a side, right? And no matter which side you pick, you're going to make someone mad. And then you feel like you're having to defend yourself because you don't want to be misunderstood, or I just don't want to be involved at all. I just want to be neutral. But then if you're neutral, you also take a lot of heat because you got to pick a side. And so, yeah, like, what do you do with all that? How do you stay hopeful when there's so much around us in our world today that really can make us feel hopeless? Now, when I first started this podcast and said, what's this all about? I told you this is not a religious podcast. Okay. And I hope you feel like I have been true to that, even though I talk a lot about Jesus. I've talked about the church. I hope you understand that this isn't religious. This isn't about talking about religion. But at the same time, you have to talk about something, and at least for me, I have to have something that's consistent. Why do I do what I do? Why do I believe what I believe? And in today's topic, why do I have hope? Where does my hope come from? And I want to try to communicate this in a way that you don't feel like, oh my gosh, this is just someone else trying to convince me of Jesus. Nope. I'm not going to try to convince you of Jesus. My commitment to you is to be brutally honest, transparent, and share with you my journey, my story when it's appropriate. And if at some point you're like, man, Scott, I've heard things from you, or man, I never thought about it that way. And okay, I'm hanging with you. Great. That's great. If at some point over time you're like, okay, hey, Scott, the way you talk about Jesus is a little different than what I'm used to, and I'm open to this. Great. You know what? I love it. But that's not the intent. That's not the motive. And ultimately, I want that to be authentic. And I want you to know that that's the truth. That's my intent. So when I talk about hope, when we talk about that today, you have to know that Jesus is going to come up, because I'm going to tell you where I find my hope. But hang with me here, because this isn't going to be, well, my hope is in Jesus, and I'm just going to leave it there. I don't play that game. So when you think about hope, and I would say, as we've started this, we're 6 minutes in. Take an assessment. If you want to pause and think about, like, the past week, past month, the past year, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your hope? How hopeful are you? Okay. That's question number one. On a scale of 1 to 10, in the past week, month, and year, how hopeful have you been? And then another question: how did that hope serve you? So in the past year, is the thing or things that helped you be hopeful, are they coming to fruition? Are they maintaining your hope? Are you still able to be hopeful in those same things, or has your hope been disappointed? So that's the other question. In the past week, past month, past year, in the things that you were hopeful, that kept you having a hopeful heart, a hopeful perspective, how did they serve you? Are you still hopeful? Or is the thing or the things that you hoped in disappointed you? So pause, hit pause now, think about that. Come back when you're ready. So as I think about that question in the past week, month, and year, I've accomplished a lot, right? I've encountered a lot. There are things that I could say that if I had put my hope in those things, I would be really, really disappointed talking to you right now. Okay. So for example, it's a little over a year ago now. I guess we're just past a year, so I'm going to stretch that year time frame. Little over a year ago now, I was in a spiritual family, spiritual community, and never saw myself not being there. I had a lot of hope. I had great friendships. I enjoyed what I did there. Um, so I would say I had hope in the four walls and the spiritual family that I was in. That didn't work out. Really, really disappointing. Okay. I was in a career that, so a year ago, I would have been there like 6 months a year ago. It was a transition within the same company that I'd been working for. It was like a transfer. Um, the original company I was in, super high stress. Oh my gosh, it was extremely stressful. I did the job. It felt like the company that hired me may disagree, but I felt like I was doing the job of three people, and it was a lot. It was a lot. I was stressed. So I took a transfer to what I hoped was going to be less stress, more focused, allow me to really do what I'm gifted at doing, which is structure, creating structure for an organization, helping with policies and procedures. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. And I had hope in that, right? Um, Found out that it wasn't too much different from the original. A lot of stress, just a lot of things were happening there that kind of killed my hope. Disappointment in decisions that were made, disappointment in decisions that weren't made, that needed to be made, disappointment in the actions of certain people. And unfortunately, it's corporate. Like in a corporate environment, it is what it is. So I would have been disappointed by that. If I think back a month ago, so a month ago, sitting here now, I was 2 weeks past being unemployed. So as I sit here right now, yes, your host is an unemployed person. I was going to say bum, but I'm trying to do better at not putting myself down. Thank you to one of our listeners who listens and says, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, don't put yourself down. That's not good." And she's right. So, yeah, a month ago, I was 2 weeks from being unemployed, and it was bittersweet. Like, not being employed is scary, but stress was gone, right? Like I actually started sleeping at night. Um, Man, for 3.5 years when I was working for that company, uh, TMJ, stress, stomach issues, like it was a lot. And so within just 2 weeks of not being in that environment, like my TMJ's not bad anymore, stomach's doing good, like all these things, right? So a month ago, uh, I was hopeful, but it was scary. I'm unemployed. What am I going to do now? A week ago. So a week ago, I was doing a job, and I say a job. I did a little project for a friend, built something, and was I hopeful? I don't know if hopeful's the word, because I realized I'm not as young as I used to be. The type of physical labor that I was doing, man, I was hurting. I was coming home hurting. My body hurt. I think I'm having to come to terms with the fact that I may have arthritis in my fingers. So hopeful, thankful. I was thankful that I found something to do to kind of, put a few greenbacks in the bank while I'm unemployed. But I don't know if the hopeful is the right word, but I was thankful. I was thankful to have something to do. So that's the journey. So if that was where I placed my hope, was in my job, my church, um, a career, I'd be sitting here right now telling you, yeah, disappointed, really, really disappointed, uh, not hopeful. The things that I had hoped for, if that's where I placed all my hope, not great. Economy's not good right now. It's not. I mean, gas, 430, 450. If you want the premium stuff, 505. Economy's not good. And I'm unemployed. Oh boy, that's not hopeful. Yeah, it's not looking good if that's what I measure my hope by. So if that's not what I'm going to measure my hope by, and if I'm not going to have the Jesus conversation, then what do I have to hope in? Where do I put my hope? I can't put it in the government. And I'm not going to go off sideways here. I'm just telling you, I can't put my hope in my government because I don't know what it's going to do from one day to the next. Um, I can I can try to put my hope in my job, and maybe you've got a great job. Maybe you're like, Scott, I'm sorry about that. I am. I'm really sorry that you had that experience. Man, I love my job. My job's great. I got so much hope for the future of my job. Good. Man, great. Good for you. I'm glad you have that. And I mean that sincerely. I'm glad you have that. Fantastic. What happens if you lose your job? What happens if AI takes your job? What happens if the cost of fuel affects your job? Right? Not by any means am I trying to cause fear. That's not what I'm doing here. But what I'm saying is, what if the thing that you hope for fails? Then what? Okay. So it's just a situational question, not a I'm trying to pour sour milk in your cereal. I'm just asking questions. It's what we're doing here. Uh well, Scott, I have a great spiritual family. Man, my church is great. We're doing great things. Whatever that looks like. Awesome. If it's hopeful and things are going great, fantastic. I have not an issue with that. I truly am happy for you if you have that. But what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if you're offended? What happens if something is said inappropriately or a situation is handled inappropriately by the church and leadership? Then what? Not trying to create fear. I'm asking the question. Because ultimately, everything that and this is probably going to sound, all right, Scott, now you are getting religious. Everything that man tries to control, people, is prone to disappoint. It is. And then how do we manage the disappointment? Do we move into hopelessness? Because hopelessness can really, really, really cause us to see things negatively. It becomes a filter where pessimism, I'm just pessimistic. Um, I'm a cynic. Hopelessness creates cynicism. Hopelessness really causes us to shut down our ability to love. It shuts down our ability to be loved if we're hopeless. It causes us to pull inward, isolate if I'm hopeless because I'm just going to be disappointed. Why would I spend my time with someone else? They're just going to disappoint me too, right? Hopelessness can give us a negative attitude. If we're in our job and I'm hopeless, I can really become dangerous to those around me because I'm just negative. Now, I'm not saying you got to put on a good face and I'm happy when inside I'm terrible. Don't ever put up a front just to try to please other people. Our authentic self is what we're pursuing. So, what do we do? Where do we put our hope where we know we're not going to get disappointed? Now, another thing that I want to throw in here, not being disappointed doesn't mean it always goes the way you want. Doesn't mean it's always perfect and hey, candy cane and lollipops and rainbows and here we go. No, that's not being hopeful is everything's going to be great. Hope says even when things aren't, I'm still good. Even when everything's crashing around me, I'm good. I'm not going to go under. I'm not drowning. It's tough, stressful. Fear is going to try to creep in, anxiety, but I'm still good. I can overcome whatever's in front of me because I have hope. I have something I can hang on to that gets me through. So if not, if we don't go down the road of talking about Jesus, then what can we put our hope in that we can latch onto that in some way, shape, or form history hasn't told us is going to probably let us down? Okay. Because I don't want to be a cynic. I don't want to be a skeptic. Don't want to be negative. I don't want to be hopeless. I want to be that person. I don't want to live miserable. I don't want to live always looking over my shoulder like they're going to get me. That's no way to live. I'm not saying you live with your head in the sand either. Ignorance is bliss. As long as I don't know, everything's fine. That's not wise at all. That's a setup for being a victim and vulnerable to the bad things. So what do we put our hope in? I'm just asking the questions. So I'm going to give you my answer, and you do with it what you will. But here's my answer. For a lot of years, I put my hope in the things we've just talked about. I put my hope in people. I put my hope in the Four Walls Church. I put my hope in my career. I put my hope in my own abilities. Um, and yeah, I've been disappointed by all of them. Disappointment is part of this life. Okay. It's going to happen. Not saying by hoping the right things, you're never disappointed. It's regardless of my disappointment, I'm still hopeful. Okay. So all those things that we've talked about already, I have placed my hope in those things and was disappointed. I just said that. I'm trying to drive the point home. And then those things started to fail. And I'm thankful that I did find Jesus before the serious stuff started to happen, because I don't know how I would have made it through. So the first big disappointment that, yeah, hopelessness did creep in at times was whenever I lost my marriage. You know, we'd been together for 17 years. She was the only person I'd ever been with. We had 2 sons together. Did I make mistakes? Yeah. None of us go through marriage without making mistakes. Now, I don't want you to sit there and go, uh-oh, what did he do? No, I did not have an affair. No, I did not do anything that would warrant a divorce. Could I have communicated better? Yep, I could have. I could have communicated things better. Could I have done a better job of explaining the transition that I was making with Jesus? Yep, I could have. A mistake that I made, and I think a lot of us do, is I was trying to figure out what was going on. Things had gotten harder between me and my previous wife. We'd started going to counseling, and I was hopeful. I was so hopeful, but I also didn't understand why it was still getting worse. And so I started talking to other people, not to like put her down or to find people that would agree with me. I was just trying to find out what was going on. I was trying to understand this. And I talked to too many people. I should have done a better job of talking directly to her. But that was part of the challenge of our marriage, is communication was not great on either side. And I walked on eggshells because of her reactions. I was passive. I was afraid. I was afraid of her, be honest with you. I was afraid of her. So those were my mistakes. I could have done stuff better. I could have come into the marriage as a much stronger man, less of a doormat. So those are my mistakes. But I wanted to make that very clear, that when I said I made mistakes, I wasn't unfaithful to her. She just wanted a different life. So I was living through my job, the brokenness, all those things, right? But then I did. I came to fully surrender to Jesus Christ because I had an encounter that was true. You can't be the same. You'll never be the same after you encounter Jesus for who he truly is. My life changed. My priorities changed. I no longer was looking for the money, wasn't looking for the title. I wanted something that meant something more, right? Um, Coming clean about my past, the stuff that I had isolated from, hidden from, getting free of all of that. And as I became healed and whole, my previous wife decided that I was not someone that she wanted to be married to. Because, like I said, I no longer was about the material stuff. I was no longer about the influence, the parties, the toys. I wanted to live an authentic life. She wanted something else. And so she chose a different life apart from me. Brutal. Brutal. And then, the courts get involved. The wrong people in her ear get involved. And I get drugged through a terrible custody battle. Because all I asked for, because again, my priorities have changed. If I can have a bed, if I can have my clothes, if I can have my tools so I can make a living if I need to, my truck and my kids, you can have all of it. The house, the boat, all the land, you can have it all. I want my sons. I need my sons. And got drugged through a terrible court battle. And let me just tell you, and I'm not faulting the courts because there's a lot of bad dudes out there. The courts, they do not favor the father in a custody battle. Brutal. And then the people that you thought you could trust that were your friends. And I don't blame them. They don't want to choose sides, so they just fade into the background. But it's even worse when they do choose sides and not take the opportunity to take in all the information. It's tough. Hopelessness, loneliness. I never thought about taking my own life, but I was at a point where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Okay. Then, like I said, the jobs, lost what I was doing, not because I was with True North Ministries. They did not get rid of me. They did not tell me that I was disqualified now that I was divorced. The opposite. Beautiful, kind. They were so kind to me. But I was so broken. I'm like, I can't do what this ministry needs me to do. I'm broken. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to hold myself together. I'm trying to fight for my sons, trying to figure out my next job. I need something mindless, brainless, so I can get through this. Hopelessness really tried to creep in. And if I had let it win, I may not be with you today. Right? It was just so destroying. But I did have Jesus. I knew I could trust him. And I'll never forget, it was probably when I was at my lowest. I was lonely. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I was afraid. And I was on the ground and ugly crying. I mean, we're talking snot and spit and tears. I mean, it was ugly. I was at complete loss. And Jesus spoke to me. And again, like I said, you guys may go, Jesus spoke to you, Scott. I don't know about this. Jesus spoke to me. It was in my heart. It was in my head. I could hear it and feel it. Okay. And this is what he said. Scott, I will not leave you. I will not forsake you. And I am so sorry. I understand the pain you're going through. And he gave me a scripture verse, and it started to pull me up. And it's Matthew chapter 19, verse 29. And it says, the disciples are asking Jesus because they're starting to see where this is going, right? Like we're getting toward the end. We're getting close to the crucifixion. And they asked Jesus, what's this going to cost us? And he said, I tell you the truth. Whatever you forsake to follow me, whether it be mother or father, whether it be child or possession or spouse, I won't just restore what you lost, but I'm going to restore it 100 times. And in that moment, I didn't know what that meant, but it was something. It was an anchor. And what I thought it meant is he's going to restore my marriage. It's not what he did. And I'm looking at the clock. So it looks like this is going to be a part 2. So he gave me that. And it's what I needed. It was something to hold on to. It was hope. And what I thought he was going to do, he didn't do. He did something even greater. And I'm going to leave you hanging on that for part 2 of Hope. We'll see you guys next time.